how do I clean up the mess after I've hurt someone or I've yelled or I've raised my voice? We might want to throw in an apology. We might want to validate their feelings. It makes sense. You feel scared, honey, type of thing. I try to say, let's all get very good at repair, because then whatever stupid thing we do, we have the skill and ability to make amends and clear it up and get back to a good place.
Hi, I'm Steve Saporn, and this is the Neuro's Journey. I created this show for the man who's ready to see his actions align with who he really is. Join me each week for conversations, practical tools, and real stories to help you take ownership of your mind, your habits, and your life.
Welcome Jayson Gaddis onto the show today. I've been listening to his content for a long time, and just the way you talk with men really resonates with me. It's kind of challenging, direct, can say something like get your balls into it, but not be descending into manosphere or demeaning women. And I really resonated with the relationship and fatherhood as path. It's been a big part of my journey, and seeing your content has kind of pushed me in that direction. So I appreciate it. Jayson's book, Getting to Zero, is a bestseller. He's had 8 million podcast downloads. He started the relationship school. Over 100,000 people have done his programs, and you train coaches worldwide. So appreciate your time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Grateful to be here.
Yeah. So researching you a little bit, you're a driven dude, like from the beginning, athlete, president of your fraternity, soloing Half Dome at Yosemite. So I'm kind of interested in getting a little bit of backstory, like where do you think that drive came from? And then how did you transition that drive into what you're doing now and working with men and relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably came from feeling like I'm not enough, and dad, constantly trying to get dad's love. He was a 3-time All-American ski racer, national champion. And, he wanted me to be like him, of course, and I wanted his love. So I was like, okay, I'll try really hard to be like you. But I failed miserably at trying to be like him. But, there's so many driven people are often run by some kind of wound, right? And it was a version of, hybrid, trying to get dad's love and trying to be enough.
And then, so at some point you decided to take that drive and work with men and couples in this way. I'm wondering how it relates to your purpose and what was the story there that happened? Because you've been doing this now 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah, about 30 with people, kind of formally like hardcore 20 or so years when I got a master's degree in psychology. But I'd say my I'm definitely a believer of like the wound or your injuries as a kid, your traumas create the conditions to have a purpose in life. Not for everybody maybe, but definitely was for me. So I grew up in a great family, but there was a lot of relational neglect, and it was very compromised relationally. So I was fed and clothed, and my dad, came to every game, and he was present in that way. And my mom's boundaries were really weird, and her and I were in some emotional enmeshment thing. I was kind of taking care of her because she felt bad about herself. So I was, from a very young age, tracking all the relational dynamics in the home and then outside the home, social dynamics to try to fit in and belong. And so you could say that all set the stage for giving a shit about relationships later, right? And it didn't happen. I didn't kind of wake up to this till when I was about 29 after a lot of failed relationships. I was like, oh, maybe I'm the problem. So I'm definitely with you. I think the purpose comes out of, some kind of carnage early on.
Yeah, the I'm the problem thing, I think, is just really actually freeing when you decide that you're the problem.
Right.
Like, because then instead of everything else is an issue, it's like, well, it's just me, how I relate to this situation. That took me a little later than 29 to figure that out. But you're more advanced than me, man.
I don't know about that.
I appreciate it. So my work is centered around men. And we have sons the same age. So my son is very inquisitive. He's smart. He's emotionally aware. And so I'm wondering if he doesn't really know you, but he knows what you do in the world. He would kind of ask this question of you, like, what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah, I think that's a really loaded question because of what we see men doing these days out in the world, and the abuse of power and just manipulation and just like a never ending quest for money and power and status. I think it's a lot of young men in particular look to that and be like, oh, that's a man. Right. And obviously that's not how I feel at all. Unfortunately, it's a gendered question, which is appropriate. But if we take just man out of the equation and we just say we add HU in front of it, like what does it mean to be a human being? To me, that's a more interesting question because we're talking about the human journey and being ourselves and getting out from under the messages about who we're supposed to be, what a man is supposed to look like, act like, talk like. It's just like, what does a human, an empowered human, look and feel like? And yeah, I get so many men get really jammed up with the being a man thing and what that even means. And we've all got our definitions, right? There's the subjective, there's the textbook, there's the manosphere definition, there's the men's work definition. So I don't really know, but I'm interested in supporting men, boys and men, into becoming who they really are in their heart of hearts, including a transgender dude, a gay man, like whatever it looks like, for you to be authentically an empowered you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because you see that, what we're seeing in the world. And I think it really comes, at least in my experience and having operated like that for a long time, doing a finance career, being successful at it, also being a drug addict. It was really the lack. I was operating from not trusting that things would work out, that I was connected to something. And so I was acquiring, and it just was this never ending cycle. And so, the way that I'm starting to orient around man and that way of gendered is just that instead of power over,
Yeah.
it's power under. It's like creating the conditions for myself as well as my people to thrive. So I'm wondering, when you're working with somebody and you're giving them that advice and they have the kind of nervous system that I did, sure that they can do that. They might want to. How do you work with someone like that?
Yeah, you're kind of speaking to our reactivity, right? In conflict or fighting with a partner, for example, or our kids or whatever. Yeah, totally. It's really common. I try to have people focus on the repair. Is how do I clean up the mess afterwards, after I've made a mess or after I've hurt someone or I've yelled or I've raised my voice. And it's so fast, right? The nervous system just does the default thing in the heat of the moment. And obviously we want to get better at that over time, and like have there be a pause before the statement or a breath. That's ideal, but that takes years literally to develop that ability. So what we can do sooner than that, because it's much shorter, is to an hour later or a day later or as soon as possible to come back and be like, my bad. I raised my voice and I said the insult to you. I said the mean thing. I got defensive. I got scared and I just reacted. And I can imagine the impact on you was that you felt really hurt, upset by what I did. So we own what we did and then we empathize with what the impact might have been. We might want to throw in an apology. We might want to validate their feelings. It makes sense. You feel scared, honey, type of thing. So I try to say, let's all get very good at repair, because then whatever stupid thing we do, we have the skill and ability to make amends and clear it up and get back to a good place.
And then, so when I hear that, I'm filtering this through my experience. It's a lot. I mean, now sorry is my game, and I do it a lot better when I relate to, this isn't who I am as a person, right? I did not operate the way that I am, but I didn't really have an identity before that. I had an identity that just was kind of scooped up on me and I didn't even know what it was. And at some point I decided, like, I'm going to be something and this is what I'm going to be. But, it was difficult for me to say, I'm sorry. Felt like I needed to say, yeah, I'm sorry, but like all that shit that you did, like that kind of thing. And I know it's frustrating for the partner. So do you offer techniques or guidance to men who are in that spot, like where they can figure out that I'm sorry and that it's not an attack on them, it's actually strength?
Yeah, it's a valid point. Yeah, again, there's so much conditioning here, right? About like sorry is weakness, or yeah, but you did the thing. I'm over here scorekeeping all the things you did wrong. And if I own my part, that means I'm wrong and you're right. Validating your feelings means the same. You're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to really train people like, no, that's actually not, it's like brainwashing. It's like you were brainwashed about how to behave under stress by your family. And now we got to unlearn some bad habits and instill an operating system and some tools and skills that are just way more effective and are going to get you what you want, what you claim you want.
Mm.
And like, so a lot of this is getting people's minds around it, right? First,
Mm-hmm.
setting some kind of context, getting people intellectually bought in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I can see why that would be good, And then it's about, okay, are you willing to practice, fall down and get back up, practice, fall down, get back up, keep going, stay in it with your partner. And and then you have to be like, are you in a relationship that's fair and mutual? Meaning, do you guys agree that you both have a part and we're going to play a game where when there's a snag, we both take 100% responsibility. So that equals 200% responsibility. We both try to empathize with the other person. We validate each other's feelings. We both look after each other. Like that's the game we're going to play now. Instead of this other childhood trauma thing, we're going to enter into a new way of relating. And are you up for that? Yes, I'm up for that. Cool. We're a team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this together. So guys don't have to do it alone. So in other words, you got to enroll your partner into the game, into the new way of operating. And sometimes guys are with someone who's like, what do you mean? It's all your fault.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, we're in a different problem. This is a different problem. You can't repair with someone who won't repair with you. That's not going to work. So you need a team player. A lot of people find themselves with someone who's not a team player.
Interesting. And then so a couple things on that. So if they are aligned, then they sort of probably maybe both aren't perfect at it, and they can sort of have a kind of connection on that we're both trying something new. But if there's somebody who's not buying in, so you're with somebody, right? And you've decided this is how you want to be as a man, and you're not getting that feedback. I mean, that's where relationships end, do you think, at some point, if they don't? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, more or less, like, look, people stay together all the time in those kind of relationships, but to me, it's ended, but they're still together, because they're not actually repairing anything.
Mm-hmm.
One person's just constantly resentful and the other person feels judged and criticized, and they just brush it under the rug and agree to coexist. Right. So that you can still stay in a relationship,
right.
But in terms of really being a team and deepening in the safety and like really working as a team, that's over. For a lot of people, I recommend like get the fuck out. If this is a person who won't pull their weight and is not willing to take any ownership for what they do in an argument or with a difficult conversation, then why are you with them?
Right. Yeah. And do you feel so when you're communicating with people, right? This is kind of I mean, they're coming often probably in the midst of a problem, right?
Yeah.
And do you give them a vision of what their relationship and life could be like?
Yeah.
So how do you communicate to them like, well, this is the goal worth doing all this stuff to get to?
Yeah.
Like, what is that in a way that's compelling for them and gets them motivated?
Yeah. Well, I might ask them a bunch of questions to get to know their values and kind of what is meaningful to them.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I would say, look, your marriage or long-term relationship should feel like coming home, where you come home and your whole nervous system relaxes. You're like, oh God, it feels good to be here with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel safe. I feel relaxed. Out there is kind of scary and intense, called the world. I enter this door, and when I'm with you, I just feel like good again. I feel like I can be myself. That's what we're after. And a lot of people have it the opposite way around, which is coming home is stressful. I feel dysregulated. I don't know how it's going to go. We're going to get into an argument or a fight, and it's like, this could be I might not sleep. We might sleep in separate beds tonight. Like it could go bad.
Mm-hmm.
And out there feels better when I'm with my friends or at work or out in nature or doing my hobbies. And then I come home and it's like, shit. Right. So we're trying to flip it and say, no, your home should be the place where you get resourced and rejuvenated. And, according to the research with like the Harvard study and so many other studies, is the quality of that relationship is going to determine how long you live and how well you live into old age. If you're doing well together, if it feels like a sanctuary, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I mentioned I was writing a book, and I gave my partner Leah just some questions to answer so I could get her take on, because I've had a lot of trauma, and she's really seen my ability to sit with these things, change, and all that. And that was
Yeah.
kind of what I was focused on. But what was really interesting is she gave me this in voice message, and it was really a moving experience. I'll never forget listening when she started to talk about how the way that I'm showing up is impacting her life all across the board. You know, she's like, I am much better at work now because I'm safer at home. Like
That's huge.
yeah. And I'm
Exactly.
loving you and giving you things in the bedroom, in the kitchen, all over that I never gave any other partner because and she came from a physically abusive house. So there's that kind of like, I'm holding my safety thing.
Yeah.
And when she got to relax into that, and so it becomes to me this this self-reinforcing
Yeah.
loop, right? Because then that made me feel not just like I was doing it for our relationship, but I was really serving her, like going back to what it means to be a man. You know, it drove that point home more to me. So yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful thing. And, I know that you speak really highly of your relationship and how it supports you. And, Leah will be my third wife,
Yeah.
and I, honestly just didn't show up for those other women that I wished I could have. And to be in a partnership like that, where it really is like a home and a safety, and I was thinking about your book. So, you make sort of the case in it, right? That like the conflict is actually the relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a benefit of it. Remember one of my first meditation retreats where Jack Cornfield was telling me, he was saying, it's when you drift off and remember to come back. That's
Right.
like that's the stuff. And I kind of related to that. And so give us like a rundown of why that is and explain to people why actually having conflict is a good thing and something they want.
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge what you've created with your partner. That's really cool that you guys have that. It's just awesome.
Thank you.
And I know you've worked hard for that. So, yeah, I think I always say conflict's like not a door, it's a doorway. And it's a doorway into deeper understanding. It's a doorway into deeper connection. You can't have a secure, strong foundation in any relationship without conflict. So those people that claim like, we have a great relationship, we never fight. I just don't buy it. Like, well, then you have a wobbly foundation. So if a storm ever comes, like disease, death in the family, financial loss, something devastating, your foundation will be tested, right? And conflict is just like weight training, where the more you go to the gym and lift the weight, it's not the absence of weights that gets you stronger. It's the resistance, right? Hypertrophy, I think it's called. Like when you're lifting heavier and heavier weights, that's what gets you stronger. So you have to push up against each other to get stronger, to build and fortify a strong foundation so that it's very, very stable when the storms come and the bigger storms come, because they will come. It's just a matter of time before a big storm hits your family or your marriage or one of you with an illness or something. So I'm a big fan of like, rather than try to be all into this peaceful house thing, just embrace the conflict and learn how to get good at repair. And then it's not a problem. It's like, oh, we just had a snag for a day, or we just couldn't figure this school thing out, or this finances. This was frustrating as hell, but we got through it because we stayed in the conversation. We fought and we disagreed, but we finally listened to each other until the other person felt understood. And now, wow, we got through something hard, a really hard conversation about finances, and look at us, we made it. So we're like getting ready for the next one. So I think I'm just like, embrace conflict. It's a part of life. You can't get around it. Get good at it. And then it's like, you're off to the races here.
Yeah, I like that the wobbly foundation thing, because my previous relationship to this one, we had one of the calm, never really fought. I came out of something really dramatic with my ex-wife, and it was both heavily traumatized people, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
And my other partner was just calm, and her nervous system was very soothing to mine. And we didn't have a lot of conflict. But really what happened is when a little bit of conflict, in my view, because I'm used to heavy, loud Greek conflicts growing up, with a lot of alcohol and stuff, not, and her not, our relationship just fell apart. Like almost, it was like, what the fuck happened here? Like I would never have, like, in a million, like 4 months before our relationship ended, I would have sat there as there's like a 0.1% chance this thing is ending.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, it was like a little conflict came, and there was a lot of stress. My nephew there was a lot of things that were happening, and there was a lot of stress going on. But it really, I never would have thought. I thought our foundation was strong because, and it was genuine. I didn't feel like we were avoiding a lot, but what was happening is we met in a certain spot, and then things changed, and all of a sudden there was conflict, and we developed no tools, and I wish I would have, at least in that version of me, wish I would have understood, like, oh, like there's something actually like we're not tending to, so that's interesting.
Would you say you guys had significant depth in the way that your current relationship has depth?
Well, no, just because I learned vulnerability in such a different way. And so now I'm very open to being what I'm feeling that is not, I just used to hide things, right? So I've got it covered, and I'm this or that, and I would dissociate or hate or something. We did have closeness though, and we really talked about a lot of things, but the depth level is also, reflective of Leah. She's extremely brilliant person, and she's really, she's been a therapist for a long time and worked in the foster care system and understands trauma. So we connect on a level that is really different. But that said, with these tools and now, like my previous partner and I could have lasted, probably would have been like a nice and fulfilling relationship. But it's one of those things where it's like, it really drove me into all this change. I was so freaked out about it, and sort of overwhelmed by my sensations around it, and looking at it from a point of view of that relationship. So it was great. Kind of is not really related to how I'm feeling now, which is panic attacks and all these kinds of things. But they were the thing that really got me to, like, say, I'm going to change, and I'm going to figure out what's going on. And so that's just kind of what it was.
Yeah, you said something important there that I think just want to slow down on, which is, I heard you say something like, I wasn't really feeling in that other relationship, right? And that's part of the problem. Like when people aren't because feelings make people uncomfortable. Like if I'm bringing my vulnerability, which is anger, sadness, joy, frustration, fear, if I'm not bringing that to my partner, right? Where is it going? And how are we're not getting any practice, like you said, dealing with those feelings. Because sometimes my feelings trigger your feelings, and then your feelings trigger my feelings. And then now we're in this big spiral, right? So couples have to get good at feelings. It's like one of the biggest movers of intimacy and glue is like, we have to know each other's inner domain. All the things you go through in a day or in a night or in a year, like I want to know, right? If I'm with you, like what's it like in there? And couples get really complacent and don't want to know because they don't know what to do. Guys want to fix, women want to talk about it, maybe, generally speaking. And doesn't go anywhere. So, and a lot of us men have been trained from a very young age to go on lockdown around our feelings. And then we have to medicate drugs and alcohol like you and I did to feel okay. Like, oh, I feel better when I drink.
Right.
I'm so fucking jammed up.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I wanted to ask a question about, because so much of your work is relationship oriented and father oriented. Like, what does the single guy do? But like when I hear you, at least for me, like my nervous system felt like a binary experience. A lot of childhood trauma, so it was like fucking activated. Like I don't want to feel like this at all.
Yeah.
And so as I clued into it more, I really realized I'm just pinging between this behavior and that behavior. Actually, our mutual good friend Ravane helped me out when I was trying to quit drinking. He said to me, "Don't quit, but like what I'd like you to do is take a few breaths before you drink and like know why you're drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I liked wine and appetizers, but really I just had a nervous system that was fired up, and a couple glasses of wine made it feel good. And so for the single guy, not in a partnership, not and not a father, wants to cultivate this kind of thing, what do you recommend he does?
Yeah, well, he's got to get good at feeling regardless,
Mm-hmm.
and having friends, coworkers or friends that he can be real with. So you don't need a partner to be real with, but a lot of these single men who haven't done this before have trained their male friends that all we talk about is sports, politics, beer, women, whatever. Like, we keep it on the surface and we laugh and joke and deflect and use sarcasm to connect. And you gotta start being bored of that and being more curious of, like, I wonder what's actually going on in these guys' lives. And I wonder what it would be like if I could say, hey, what's really going on in your life? It seems like all we talk about is this stuff. How's your marriage? How's your sex life? How are your finances? What are you afraid of? You know, how do your kids feel about you, really? Or what's it like being single and at your age? Are you insecure? Are you scared? Are you afraid you're not going to meet someone? Like, tell me what's real.
Right.
So guys can get practice with anyone, and they can obviously do that with a professional therapist or coach or someone. They can do it in a men's group. There's lots of places to practice and kind of train in vulnerability and honesty, authenticity prior to the next relationship. Plus, that's only going to help you attract someone who's even more awesome, because most women, if you're in the hetero relationship thing, want your heart. They want to know what's going on inside. And if a woman doesn't, then I wouldn't want to be in that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, the men's group thing was what started it for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I always felt really blessed. I lived in Boulder. There's so many talented people here and
Yeah.
therapists, and I had the benefit of working with Urbane Bacall for a year.
Yeah.
And he really set the container. And when I talk about it, women love knowing you were in a men's group. When I was dating and all
Yeah.
that, that's a definite. At least the women that
someone
that you want.
Yeah.
But and then I talk to people in other parts of the country where there's not a therapist in every tree and all that. But do you feel like just the even inexpert 8 men together saying we have a men's group, we're just going to figure it out, that's the beginning of this process? Do they need guidance? Would you offer men who don't feel like they have resources and want to start a men's group, just roll with it and start, or would you say learn some things?
Yeah, I'd say it depends on the guy. It's up to the individual, of course. But I'd say one of the easiest places to start is with your closest male friend.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation is like, hey, dude, and I say, hey, so I coach guys on this, is like, let's have the conversation with this guy and ask if he wants to go deeper, if he wants to get more real, and if he's up for taking the friendship to another level of depth and intimacy. And if he's scared off by that and he's like, makes fun of you, you've got your answer, right? If he's intrigued, but maybe a little nervous, he might be a guy who is going to make the cut. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but try me out. Let's try it right now. Like, ask me a question. I don't know. This is awkward. But a guy like that might be up for more intimacy, more depth, more honesty. So that's a great place to start, because it's free, doesn't cost anything. Could cost you your friendship, which is a high cost. But if it's just a superficial friendship that you're wanting to take to the next level and he doesn't want to come along, you got to honor that. And then another great spot is it's good to start with a paid men's group, because there's a lot of shitty peer run groups that don't even know how to do it. And, it's fine to try to start one, I guess, but you got to have a little bit of framework. And you could Google online, or you could ask AI now, how do I run a men's group? And I'm sure there'd be a lot of awesome answers. But I think a paid men's group's good. Again, you can work with an individual coach or therapist to coach you around how to take all your male friendships to the next level. And again, if you're lonely and don't have male friends, like, a men's group is a great place to meet cool dudes, that are in a like-minded situation.
Do you have experience? I don't have experience. It's some of the more national groups like Mankind Project or anything.
Yeah, a little bit. I've interviewed all those guys and vice versa on their podcasts over the years, and Man Talks, Everyman, Mankind Project, Sacred Sons. There's all, I think, cool organizations, each with their own little flavor, usually instilled by the founder or the guy who started the whole thing. So I think they're all great. They all might take, you got to look at like, okay, let's Google all these different men's organizations and who do I jive with, right? A guy in a business suit that's never hung out with a guy with long hair and dreadlocks might be like, this is too woo woo for me, or that guy's too much of a hippie, or judge him, like whatever, like who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Find a group that there's a little bit of resonance and take a risk. Yeah.
So when I was doing the research on you, I came across this concept you have of the strategic self.
Yeah.
And coming from finance, I just had this experience that one myself and talking, probably hundreds of guys that achieved all their monetary goals, and life was almost worse. I mean, I went into a deeper depression because I was fortunate the business young. And I'd set some goals for myself monetarily, and those were reached at like 33. And there was just an emptiness inside. And I went into more depression
Yeah.
and more substance use. And so I'm wondering, like, I'm assuming you've seen that dynamic a lot and how you work with it and what the strategic self,
Yeah.
like how it plays in that.
Yeah. So the short backstory on the strategic self is, I simplify it as strategic self and true self.
Mm-hmm.
When we're little boys, as an example, I'll just talk about myself. I got the message from my dad that my sensitivity and my emotions were not at all welcome in the home. So crying, I got things like, I'll give you something to cry about, stop acting like a crybaby. And then you go on the playground with a lot of boys' sports and boys' games. If you are crying, typically you're going to get made fun of or beat up or bullied or something. So you're always like, shit, I got to like pull it together here or I won't fit in. So in the social group, it's I won't belong. In your home, it's like I actually might get kicked out of this family, which to a 3-year-old is death. You can't take care of yourself as a 3-year-old. So it's very annihilatory and bad, right? High consequences. You get hit, you get judged, you get neglected and ignored. Every family has their version of how they're going to punish who you really are. So you got to develop strategies to get by that environment that help you survive and adapt. And that's what I call the strategic self. And so the true self starts to go underground. My sensitivity and my emotions, I just put them on lockdown in favor of performing, being funny, being cute, achieving shit, right? Getting decent grades in school so that dad would get off my back. Right? And so that mom would love me and dad would like approve of me. And then so that I would be accepted on the playground, right? And on the sports teams. So guys have this split between their true self, which is now starting to go underground, and their strategic self, which is now leading the way. And it becomes so common and so chronic that guys don't even know they're in a strategy. And so they keep getting messages from the outside of what love will be like. So it's like, okay, if I make enough money, if I achieve enough success, if I win, if I dominate, if I never show any emotion, then I'll get what I'm looking for here, which is like love and acceptance, belonging, approval. And they find out that doesn't work in your case, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of men's cases, right? Especially high achieving men. And it doesn't pan out. And they're like, fuck. And then they go into an existential crisis usually, which is great because it shatters their plan and hopefully brings them onto the path of personal growth where they're like, what's going on here? This didn't work. I worked so hard and it didn't work. And then what's so cool about marriage, why I love marriage so much, is the strategy doesn't work. Like you want to be in a strategy and stay married. It's unless your wife is going to also be in a strategy, the two of you can kind of pat each other's strategies on the back and like pretend all the time. But this is why conflict is so important because it starts pushing authenticity to the surface. Like we fall in love 1 to 3 years, we're good. Everything's great. Everything feels great. 3 years onward, man, it's fucking hard at times. And the shit comes out and you're a pain in the ass and you're messy and you're annoying. You have debt and you're a fucking asshole. And so is she. And then you're like, what? We want that. Now we're dealing with the real person, the true self. The true self is now out. And anyone who's also a parent knows that kids' true self is like all the time, which is why parents shut it down because they're like, whoa, this is making your tears or your tantrums or your laughter, whatever it is like too much. So I'm going to shut it down and kids adapt. So that's, the short of it on the strategic self. And I think our marriage and long-term relationships push us to get more integrated because we do need our strategies at time when we apply for a job and we kind of like, we're not farting on the job or being a drunken asshole or whatever. We want to put our best foot forward. There's a time and a place for that. But in real relationships, we want to be able to come unglued and fall apart and be totally who we are, because that's what children should be having the experience of when they're kids, so that they learn, I'm lovable just as I am. I'm lovable when I don't do this and I do this more.
Yeah, it's interesting. That makes a lot of sense when you talk about the strategy. And then you were talking about how in relationships, when you can come home and just have that sort of like safety
Yeah.
and be more, because it's more, the strategic self, the way that I would understand it, is more narrowly focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is, I'm going to get this. I'm going to do these things because I need this and I want that. And you need that, right? Like that's what we're
Yeah.
doing in life. And but then you want to be able to move between those. So I still, you don't lose your strategic self when you do this work. You just choose when to engage him or her, right?
Yeah, and I would say it's more even more integrated. Like we can become more of the same person everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we lead with, I'm going to test the waters of this environment or this relationship before I completely reveal who I am. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, with our closest friends, coworkers, family members, we're the same person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is a very transparent, open, available, vulnerable person that's messy and not neat and all the things. The gap between strategic self and true self is what I call anxiety and depression. And why people medicate, like you and me, it's like, I feel off. Like men have this chronic off feeling, like something's off. I don't know. Part of that's, we don't know what our purpose is. Part of it is, I've trained everybody to be this certain way, and my deeper nature is tucked away, and that feels bad. That should feel off,
Mm-hmm.
because you're disconnected from who you really are. So again, connection relationships bring us back home and help us integrate the two.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. The first thing that ever kind of landed on me in personal work or whatever was reading the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And I read a good book when I was in my late 20s. And, at first I was like, it's numbers, like I'm not, but when I read mine, which is a type 7, I just burst into tears,
Mm.
and it was really a moving experience for me. And I think without using the strategic self stuff, I was like, oh, I'm just like I'm just a pattern.
Uh-huh.
It's not that like I'm not some magical set of circumstances that ended up with me. This one really aligns, and not much changed, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as I look at it more, once you know that you're employing a strategy, and the other thing that is, something for somebody with my background to work on is being authentic is scary, because if you don't feel you're worthy of love, kind of hard to show it to somebody.
That's right. Yeah, because they might go away.
Yeah,
And
they
then
might really see that you are not worthy of love.
yeah, and then I'm alone.
Yeah.
Right. And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, this is why people avoid conflict, Steve, because if I really be myself, like, and tell the truth here, right, you might go away.
Yeah.
And that's choice A. Like, choice A is be myself, tell the truth, share who I really am, but this person might leave. Or choice B is keep it tucked away. I get to keep the relationship, right? But I lose the relationship with me. I betray myself. So speak up. I get to keep myself, but I might lose the person. Don't speak up. I lose me, but I keep them. Like, that's why I call it two shitty choices. And a lot of people, it's like, fuck, I don't like either choice. But the courageous path is to vulnerably go forward and be you, right? And some people aren't going to leave. Some people aren't going to be up for who you really are. That's okay.
And then the right people show up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing that is, I mean, one thing I like about the way that you talk about things, you clearly moved along this path, but you're also willing to say, well, I'm not up. I didn't do well here.
Yeah.
I didn't do well there. And what's happening with me is more just feeling connection to something greater. And I think that makes my relationship stronger. But at the end of the day, I used to be terrified that a relationship would end, and that probably undermined it, because I was doing all those things. And now, even though I couldn't foresee a reason Lee and I would, and I also have this kind of knowing, well, if that happened, the universe is for me.
Mm-hmm.
Something else is going to happen, just more trust.
Yeah.
And I think that, sometimes when circumstances become less, more difficult for me, I'll see myself contract into this fear-based thing.
Yeah.
And then, so it's like this pinging back and forth of my higher self and then still like scared little Steve.
Yeah.
And so I think that one thing, I mean, I like the way that you do it. I just don't like seeing these people on the internet talking. The moment I awakened, everything became perfect. I mean, it just sounds like horseshit.
That's funny.
And I don't think it's relatable, and I think it turns people off. It makes them feel less than, right? They'd much rather see like, here's somebody I respect who still struggles.
Yeah. I always say to those people, like, come move in with me
Yeah.
for like 5 years and you're not going to have a great experience at times, right? Because I'm an asshole. I'm mean. I can raise my voice. I can shut down. I can like dissociate. I can numb out, whatever. Like it's not helpful to promote some, I'm on the summit now model. I don't think it exists. That's why I like relationship as a path, because it's like, we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's hang out for life and let's find out if you're awakened.
Yeah, and that brings up a concept. I think that I used to think like the path of that there was an end point to the path.
Yeah.
And especially with a really heavily influenced nervous system by trauma. I didn't even know I had trauma, but I was just doing meditation retreats, this and that. Oh, it's not working. It's not because my nervous system wasn't shutting off. And I think just realizing there is, it would be boring if there was an endpoint to the path. There's no Garden of Eden to get to. You're always walking it.
That's my experience so far. I mean, ask me when I'm 90, but any wise mentor I've ever had, that's the program, is it's just an ongoing path, right? Get back up, fall down, get back up. I do think like with the ups and downs, I sort of draw this graph in my book of like empowerment is like up and to the right, kind of like finances or something, where over time, but we might have some dips in our life where it goes down, where we fall down, we get cancer, we have a, massive tragedy, or we go bankrupt or something horrible, right? And we fall to the bottom for a while, but we get back up. We're always if we're on the learning growth path, I think, and we have good mentors and teachers around us and good people around us, we're going to slowly get more and more empowered over time. But it doesn't mean less problems.
Yeah, I mean, you work with DeMartini, right? And some of that, and I think just some of it is a function of age. Now I can look back and all the things that I thought were horrible. If I look at it, I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty good for me.
Yeah, there were some upsides. Probably.
Yeah, even some of the worst things in my abuse. Now I look at it as like I can empathize with people who've had that experience.
That's right,
and I can look them in the eye and be like, I know what it feels like. And that's something that's
very meaningful.
Yeah, it's been powerful for me in a way to reframe that. So, appreciate your time, and I'll just wrap up with a question. I mean, these conversations hopefully are not for us. I mean, I like talking to you, but it's for somebody that is, stumbled onto this and that was for a reason. So, man or woman who's feeling that sort of is just something not right. What do you want to say to that person that needs to hear something that's going to move them in the direction of happiness?
Yeah, well, I'd say first tell that to yourself that something's not right. The courage to just admit that to yourself, right? To come out of denial. Like denial is like, I'm fine. There's no problem here. There's nothing to see here. From moving from that into feel great. I feel a little anxious or depressed or something's off. That's the first step. Tell yourself. Then the next step is to tell someone else. Again, therapist, coach, if you don't have a friend that can handle the truth. Ideally, though, you tell a friend, a close friend, a partner, and you say that. You look them right in the eye and say, I feel off. I don't know what's going on, but I am not good. Or I'm pretty good, but I know things could be better. I could be more fulfilled in my life, and I just feel kind of flat, uninspired, or kind of blah. That's huge to admit that to another person. Who does that, right? It just seems to be, unfortunately, a smaller group of people who does that in life. And then it's stay curious about, well, okay, what if I could do something about this? What if it were possible that I could change how I feel? Because it's in me. The world's going to keep being the world. That's very trustworthy. It's just going to keep being all the fucking shit show it is and whatever it is, and beautiful and all the things. And if I keep feeling this way, I actually have control over that. And it's not about trying to posture over it with another strategy. So it's about like taking it all off, taking the masks off, and just continuing to get vulnerable and honest with humans, good, caring humans who will hold us in that. And I think the path will start to reveal itself after that.
Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to get a hold of you, the Relationship School has its own website, right? Is that the best way? Your personal website is?
Yeah, relationshipschool.com or Jayson Gaddis. You can find coaching, events, retreats, things like that.
And all of that will be in the show notes. And thanks so much. I appreciate your time, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much for being here with me. And let's keep going on this journey together. If you know someone who needs this, share it with them. I'm here every Wednesday, and I hope to see you too.